There you are. Mabel turned to see an angry, stocky-looking man advancing on her. He wasn't that much taller than Mabel, but he still managed to exude enough of a menacing presence for Mabel to feel intimidated. It is you. I knew it. Who else would be dumb enough to try and steal from me once, let alone twice? Oh, hey, it's the love god. I can't believe it. Mabel stammered nervously. The cherub-turned musician wasn't buying any of it, though. Don't play dumb with me, girlie. Give me the vial, I know you're the one who stole it from my van. Well, steal is a strong word. I like to think that I commandeered it for a good cause. Give me the vial. He spat, his face just inches from hers for maximum intimidation. Okay, I'll give it back. Can we do this outside, though? Without everyone in the diner staring at us. Fine, but no games, kid. You've already crossed me twice, so there's no way I'm letting it happen a third time. Mabel allowed the love god to lead her out into the parking lot, where he held his hand out expectantly. All right, no more stalling. Hand over the vial. I will, I promise, Mr. Love God, sir, but I need your help with something first. You could see a small vein appear just above the love god's left eye. You're joking, right? You steal from me, and then try to negotiate a favor out of me? I know. I have no right to ask you for help, but I don't know what else to do. I may have screwed up big time, and I don't know how to fix it. The portly cherub appeared to calm down just a bit. You used some of the potion, didn't you? Mabel nodded her head yes. On some fries I tried to feed to my friend and this one guy, because I thought they would make a good couple. Only they stormed out before eating any of the fries, therefore not taking any of the potion. The problem is, though, my friend Wendy decided to swipe the fries when I wasn't looking, so she and my brother wound up consuming the potion themselves. Love God's brow perked in renewed interest. You mean that redhead, and the kid with the pine tree hat? Yeah, that's them. But how did you know that? Did you see us walk into the diner together? No, I didn't see any of you, but I could feel them. I am the love god after all, so when love is in the air, I can sense it all around me. I was getting vibes off of those two like nobody's business. Ah. Mabel cooed before remembering how dire her situation actually was. If you could sense how they feel about each other, then why didn't you just use one of your potions on them yourself? Well, doy. What would be the point? Here you are trying to do my job for me, and you don't even understand how these potions work on even a basic fundamental level. How is a potion designed to create feelings of love between two people supposed to work if those two people are already in love? It can't, because those feelings already exist. It's like throwing a lighted match on a 5-alarm fire. The potion would have absolutely no effect on them. If a couple is already on the cusp, there's really no point in wasting a potion on them. Sometimes you just have to let fate take over and do its thing. A lesson you could really stand to learn, little missy. You lucked out this time, kid. That potion shouldn't have any effect on your brother or his friend. But that's the problem, it did have an effect. A really bad one. Instead of falling head over heels in love, they started yelling and insulting each other. What? The love god looked dubious once again. How much of that potion did you use, kid? Well. Mabel finally handed over the vial. To the love god's shock, most of the contents of the jar were missing. You used a whole freaking bottle. Do you have any idea what you've done? No! Love God was about to tell her exactly what she had done before deciding no, he didn't really care. You know what, forget it. This is the perfect punishment for you. Mess with forces beyond your comprehension, and the end result is you've likely ruined your brother's love life in the process. Maybe next time you'll actually think twice before you mess with those forces. I'm out. Love God began to walk off, only for Mabel to give chase. But that's not fair. If you think I deserve to be punished, then fine, but Wendy and Dipper don't deserve to have their entire relationship ruined because of my bad decision. What kind of love god would allow that? Love god stopped and visibly shook in agitation before he turned to face her. Arg. Darn it, I guess you have a point. Still, even if I wanted to help you, which I definitely don't, there's not a whole lot I can do. There's no surefire cure or anti-potion for the goof you just made. Well, maybe you could start by explaining what exactly happened, so at least I'll understand what went wrong? Good grief, the cherub grumbled, rubbing at his forehead with his thumb. Just what you need. More information on ancient arcane secrets you shouldn't even know the first thing about. The love god composed himself as he tried to come up with a quick and simple way to explain to the meddlesome human how his love potions worked. All right, the first thing you need to understand about my potions is that they don't last forever. Maybe a few months or so at best. Second, they technically don't make people fall in love. To state it more accurately, they make two people infatuated with each other, which might come across as love, but it's really just the starting point. Human emotions like love are extraordinarily complex and not as easy to manipulate as you might think. The real test is after the potion wears off. If the couple is meant to be, feelings of actual love develop beyond the initial wave of infatuation, so they'll stay together and most likely share a long and happy life together. If it's not meant to be and the feelings fade, they move on with their lives, no harm no foul. Now, when you apply those properties to people who already have feelings for each other, well, that's where things get complicated. Complicated how? Mabel asked nervously. Well, the entire point of one of my love potions is to create feelings of love and affection between two people who don't currently feel that way towards each other. When you give the potion to two people who already have a thing for each other though, the potion is kind of useless. You can't create feelings in people that already exist. However, the love god frowned at Mabel. When you use too much potion on people who don't need it, and you used way too much, you risk causing the opposite effect of the potion's intended use. It's like putting too much hot sauce on a burrito. You add the right amount and it's just right, adding a little bit more that you don't really need doesn't change the taste all that much, but add too much and your burrito's basically inedible. So, I ruined their burrito? The portly cherub face-palmed. You seriously didn't understand that? Never mind, just answer me this question. How close exactly are your brother and this friend of yours? The vibes I got from them were pretty intense, but that doesn't tell me how far they've actually gotten, if anywhere at all. Technically just friends at the moment. Best friends really, but Dipper's had a massive crush on her since he was 12, and just a few days ago, Wendy admitted she has feelings for Dipper she wasn't quite ready to act on yet, so. About as close as you can get without having said, just shut up and kiss me, yet. Yeah, I was afraid you were going to say that. I don't know how else to tell you this, other than just to be as blunt as possible. When you use that much potion on two people who don't need it, the potion essentially has the opposite effect, so instead of falling in love, I made them hate each other. Mabel finished, as the love god finally got his point across to her. Tears filled her eyes at the realization. No. That can't be true. I'd never. Kid, look, the cherub started, actually feeling a twinge of sympathy for the girl. They don't actually hate each other. Their emotions are being manipulated into feeling like they hate each other due to a nasty side effect of the magic involved being used in a manner it was never intended to. There has to be something I can do to help though, isn't there? Please, there has to be. Sorry, kid. There really isn't. A counterspell was never created because this kind of thing isn't supposed to happen, and honestly, I'm not really sure why this particular side effect does. The best you can hope for is to wait things out until the potion wears off and hope too much damage hasn't already been done, or otherwise pray that their relationship is strong enough they can overcome the spell themselves. Months? But the way they were acting, they probably won't even be speaking to each other by that time. Wait. Did you say they could overcome the spell? How? Well, yeah. Like I said, they don't actually hate each other. In fact, when they're not in direct contact with one another, they'll both probably feel really rotten over the way they've been treating each other. If they can manage to put those intense feelings of hate to the side and remember how much they mean to one another, that should be enough to break the spell. Easier said than done, but that's your only real hope. Then there's a chance at least. That's better than nothing. Mabel looked up at the amorous musician and said, "Thank you, sir. I know you didn't really want to help me, and I don't blame you, but thank you. For my brother's sake." Yeah, whatever, he dismissed as Mabel dashed away. He called after her, "I'm not fooling around either, kid. You mess with my potions again, and I have no intention to," Mabel shouted, as she looked back briefly. "Trust me, if I can save my brother and Wendy's relationship, I swear I'll never stick my nose in anybody else's love life again." Love God wasn't kidding when he mentioned that the two victims of the wayward love potion would feel horrible over their actions once the two weren't in close proximity to each other. Wendy sulked the entire walk home, wondering exactly what the hell had happened inside that diner. 1 second, she was happy as could be, and then suddenly, "I can't believe I said all that to him. My God, he's totally gonna hate me now." "Yeah, who cares?" said that nagging little voice in her head that had suddenly begun to pop up while she was in the diner. Funny thing was, all that voice seemed to have to say was anything it could to trash Dipper. "He basically called you a lazy good-for-nothing skank. You're too good for that loser anyway. Let him go find a hole to crawl into and rot." "You're right. He didn't even flinch when he was talking all that trash about me. I don't care if I never speak to that dork again." 3 seconds later, Wendy was looking at her phone, seriously debating whether or not she should text Dipper. For some reason, though, just the sight of his name on her phone made her blood boil. She should just delete his number right off the device and forget the little punk ever existed. Wendy stuck her phone back in her pocket, and almost immediately, the phone lit up as Dipper's ringtone started to play. Wendy frantically pulled her phone back out, nearly dropping it in the process, and quickly checked the text Dipper had just sent her. "Dipper, Wendy. What the heck just happened?" "Wendy, I don't know, dude. What do you think happened?" There was a short, agonizing wait before Dipper replied back. "Dipper, you know I didn't mean any of that crap I said. My mouth just started moving and I couldn't stop it. I couldn't even believe most of what I was saying. Wendy, I know, man." There was like this little voice in my head, egging me on to say the nastiest things I could think of. "Dipper, well, they were pretty nasty. You weren't holding back, that was sure." Wendy frowned at her phone. Was he really trying to start shit with her again? That little voice in her head started to nag at her again, pushing her to fire back. "Wendy, oh, like you were a saint. You said just as many hurtful things as I did." "Dipper, yeah, well, you started it. You know, my confession to you back then is a sensitive subject for me, and that's the first place you went. Not to mention how much you seemed to enjoy it while you were trashing me." "Wendy, yeah. Maybe I did enjoy it. You know how embarrassing it is having to tell people you're friends with the biggest dork in Gravity Falls?" "Dipper, well, if that's the way you feel about it, maybe we shouldn't even be friends. I'd rather hang around with people that actually appreciate me for who I am anyway." "Wendy, hell, that's fine by me. You can go back to your only friends being your sister and the imaginary monsters you've made up in your head, the ones you chase around all the time. Drop dead loser." Wendy gripped her phone tightly, angrily waiting for Dipper's smartass reply so she could fire right back at him. It never came. With the conversation apparently over and no outlet to focus her anger on, it faded. As did her memory as to why she was so mad to begin with. She scrolled through the text conversation with Dipper to see exactly what she'd said. Her eyes widened as if seeing the words for the first time. No. There's no way I wrote all that. No, 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 no. Wendy wasn't that far from home, so she ran the rest of the way. She ran through the living room past two of her younger brothers seated on the couch, and through the kitchen past her father, whose annoyed look shifted to concern as he could clearly notice his daughter was upset. Wendy made it to her room and slammed the door behind her. She began to pace frantically, rubbing at her arms anxiously. What the hell is going on? Something's wrong. What I'm feeling right now isn't normal. Wendy's thoughts then shifted to Dipper. 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 The little bastard. The cement block tied to her ankle. The reason none of her previous relationships worked out. The reason she could never be happy. Dipper Pines ruins everything. Almost as soon as it hit her, Wendy's anger fizzled. And she was left wondering what had even gotten her so upset in the first place. I ruined everything. Wendy dropped down to her butt and sat up against her door, face buried in her hands. For the first time in a long time, Wendy Corduroy legitimately cried. Back at the Pines house, Dipper was gently banging his forehead repeatedly against the wall in the faint hope he'd give himself a concussion and forget this entire day ever happened. His sister had been pounding on his door for who knows how long by that point, and he continued to ignore her. Dipper, will you please open the door? I need to tell you something important. Your friendship with Wendy may depend it. It's a little late for that. According to my phone, apparently I decided we shouldn't be friends anymore. Why the heck would you do that? I don't know. I don't remember texting it. I can't remember why we were even arguing in the first place. Because it wasn't you doing the talking. Mabel sniffed, tearing up. I'll explain it all, Dipper, if you'll just talk to me. Damn it, Mabel, I told you that I don't want to talk to anyone right now. Would you please leave me the hell alone? Mabel was taken aback and a little hurt by his crass tone, but she couldn't blame him. That wasn't him talking, it was the side effect of the potion making him lash out. She decided it would be best to retreat for now. She'd tell her brother about the potion when he was in a better mindset to receive such information. With his sister finally out of the way, Dipper continued softly banging his head against wall. All the while, this little voice in his head was trying to plant seeds of doubt. You're better off without her anyway. She never cared about you, certainly not like you did her. That doesn't matter. We were still friends, and that's all that mattered to me. Really? And how long did you really expect that to last before she got tired of you? Before she kicked you to the curb for the sake of her own reputation? You don't need her. Yes. I do. Dipper admitted to himself. The little voice in his head didn't have quite as much control over him as Wendy's did her. Dipper had always been more resolute about his feelings for Wendy. He just didn't get why this certain part of his brain seemed so invested in goading him into destroying his relationship with Wendy. Something just wasn't right. Maybe it was time to have that talk with his sister. There was definitely a lot of tension in the air when Dipper arrived on school grounds that next morning. He was terrified he'd run into Wendy and somehow find a way to damage their relationship even further. Mabel had tried talking to him about something that morning. Something about potions or the like. He wasn't really paying attention. He just couldn't be bothered that morning, much to his sister's annoyance. Dipper made it through the first half of the school day without running into Wendy, so far so good. That was until the passing period between third and fourth period, when his luck ran out. Dipper had been walking with Mabel, who was still failing to get his attention, and Wendy had been flanked by Tambry. The two old friends stared each other down for a moment, nobody saying a word, and with any luck, Dipper hoped they could just pass each other like two ships in the night. No such luck on that end either. What the heck are you looking at? Wendy snapped grumpily after the long face-off. The voice in Dipper's head urged him to fire back, but he ignored it. Instead, he just turned his back to her and walked away. Wendy wasn't going to have any of that though. Typical. Just walk away, rather than stand up for yourself like an actual man. That got Dipper's attention. And this time he did take the bait and gave Wendy a parting shot. Well, we can't all be as manly as you, can we, Wendy? Wendy gasped and turned red, and for a moment looked like she was going to go after him. Then the bell rang, causing teens in every corner of the hallway to start scampering off to class. Wendy decided Dipper wasn't worth it and stormed off to her next class. Mabel watched the entire scene play out, and it about broke her heart. Before she could head off to her next class, however, she found herself cut off by a very unhappy-looking Tambry. "Hold on, Mabel. Would you mind explaining to me what your brother's problem is here lately? The way he's been treating Wendy is disgusting." Mabel managed a frown of her own as she instinctively felt the need to defend her brother. Well, if you'd been paying attention, you'd have seen that Wendy clearly instigated that confrontation. Trust me, she's been dishing out a lot more abuse than she's taking. Tambry appeared ready to argue but stopped as something occurred to her. What exactly would be the point of fighting with Mabel over this? I know, right? What exactly is going on here, Mabel? Wendy's just not acting like herself today, and Dipper hasn't exactly been himself either. Mabel would have loved to have a scapegoat handy, but Gompers was nowhere in sight. Besides, if she confessed, Tambry could be a potential ally to her cause. It's all my fault, Tambry. I screwed up everything. How? What did you do? Follow me, and I'll tell you. Mabel led Tambry by the arm to one of the bathrooms, which thankfully was empty at that moment. What are we doing, Mabel? We're going to be late for class. Screw class. This is far more important. From there, Mabel began to explain to Tambry about the love god stealing his potion and the effects it was having on Dipper and Wendy. Of course, this meant Mabel also had to inform Tambry of the potion's original intended targets. Wait. You were trying to use a love potion on me and Robbie? Mabel nodded. You. Like seriously, Mabel, you. I know, and I've promised to swear off meddling with people's love lives ever again. Just as soon as I can get Wendy and Dipper back in the friend zone again. Can you help me? Sure, but what can we do? Tambry asked, more than willing to help out for Wendy's sake. Well, according to Love God, we either have to wait a few months for the potion to wear off on its own, or find a way to get Dipper and Wendy to look past all the nasty, ugly feelings, remember how much they mean to each other, and that should break the spell. How do we do that, though? They can't even seem to look at each other right now without getting angry. Didn't say it was going to be easy. Especially since I have no idea how this thing really works. I think I have an idea, though. The first thing we need to do is let Wendy and Dipper know about the love potion and explain to them all the hate they're feeling for the other right now isn't real. The love gods said they'd have to fight through the bad feelings and remember how much they mean to each other, but he didn't specify how, or that they couldn't have help. If we can remind them just how important their friendship is to them, just maybe we can get them to push aside the hate just long enough to actually talk to each other like rational human beings. It's worth a try. Great. I'll take Dipper, of course, and nobody knows Wendy better than you. We'll get to work as soon as school lets out. That's fine, but Mabel. All right, it's a plan then. We should get back to class now and... Mabel! Tambry shouted as said girl tried to leave the bathroom as if she'd forgotten there was another side to this conversation. Mabel finally gave Tambry her full attention, noting how she looked unusually serious in comparison to her usual demeanor. I'm going to help for Wendy and Dipper's sake, Mabel, but you need to know that I'm not happy about any of this. It's bad enough that you tried to force me into a relationship with a guy I can barely stand, but you also may have ruined a perfectly beautiful friendship just because you can't resist messing with people's love lives. If this doesn't work and you can't find a way to fix what you've done, Mabel, I'm not sure we can be friends anymore. I understand. But it will work. They'll work through this. I know they will. Mabel was keenly aware how hard it sounded, like she was trying to convince herself of that. They just have to. Now, let me get his straight. Wendy frowned skeptically after listening to Tambry's odd tale. She was seated on her bed, while Tambry leaned against the wall, fiddling with her phone as they spoke. You're telling me I chowed down on a love potion that somehow made me hate Dipper instead of falling in love with him? How does that even happen? Don't know for sure. Mabel mentioned that it was some kind of side effect that happened because you guys. Well, you know. Wendy didn't like the insinuation one bit. I'm not in love with that dork Tambry. Didn't say you were. But you two have always been close ever since he visited that first summer. I'm afraid those days are probably over, Tambry. Wendy muttered with a hint of regret. No, they're not, just as long as you guys stop being stupid. That's what I've been trying to tell you. The negative feelings you're experiencing right now aren't real. It's a side effect of that stupid potion. Don't you think it's kind of weird that you both started hating on each other all of the sudden, for no reason whatsoever? Just a little bit weird? Well, since yesterday I've had this voice in my head telling me all these bad, horrible things. Mostly about Dipper. Mostly, or are they all about Dipper? Any nasty thoughts about me or Mabel? No. Wendy sighed. Just Dipper. Every time I think about him, I just get so angry. There's still a part of me that tells me everything this voice is saying is wrong, but it's hard to argue with your own thoughts, you know? But they're not your thoughts, Wendy, that's what I'm trying to tell you. Think about everything you and Dipper have been through together, how much you've meant to each other. Do you really want to throw that all away just because you ate some tainted cheesy fries? Of course I don't. You think I want to feel this way? I'd love to go back to the way things were, but every time I picture his stupid face, all I want to do is put my fist into it. Tambry frowned and lowered her phone, hinting at how serious the situation actually was. That's why you need to focus on the good stuff. Remember the dusk to dawn? Wendy had a laugh at that. Come on, who could forget Dipper singing in a lamb costume? Do you remember when you bought concert tickets for you and that jerk Brayden, just for him to dump you, keep the tickets for himself, and give one to that other girl he took? And then Dipper gave up his to give to you so we could have a girls' night? Wendy looked up, looking legitimately surprised. Dipper gave up his ticket? Oh. You didn't know about that part, did you? I forget that Dipper doesn't generally like to toot his own horn when he does stuff like that. In reality, Tambry was well aware that Wendy didn't know that little fact. Dipper had made both her and Mabel promise not to tell her so she wouldn't feel bad about it. Tambry was willing to break that promise if it helped get her point across. Do you remember last summer when you had that really bad fight with your dad? So bad that you actually ran out of the house in the middle of the night and threw everyone into a panic because no one could find you? It wasn't me you went to for a shoulder to cry on. Who was that again? I wasn't looking for a shoulder to cry on, and I wasn't planning on calling anyone. Dipper just happened to find me. Right away. Because he knew I always sneak up to Firefly Hill whenever I'm upset about something. I'm sure. Just like I'm sure there's a dozen other stories like that I'm not even aware of. You might disagree, but I'd sure hate to lose a friend like that. Wendy didn't respond. She rested her chin on her knees, rocking gently as the pleasant memories Tambry mentioned waged war with the foreign emotions that had invaded her body. Tambry could tell she was close. Time to move in for the kill. Hey, is that? Tambry walked over to the dresser on the far side of Wendy's bedroom. There was a book atop that dresser, one that looked very similar to the journals Dipper and his great-uncle Ford were famous for. The big difference with this one was that it had a lumberjack's axe on the cover. Isn't this that book Dipper mailed you for your birthday last year? Oh, that thing? Wendy spat as she stood up and was soon standing next to Tambry. She picked up the book and frowned. Leave it to that dork to think giving me my own version of his lame journal was a good birthday present. I don't know why I haven't tossed the damn thing in the fireplace yet. Do you use it all? Well, yeah, but... Tambry smiled. What exactly do you write about in it? You know. Just stuff. Mostly about the adventures I've had with the twins. Mostly Dipper, but... It just seemed like an appropriate use for it. Wendy opened up the journal and skimmed through the first few pages. Tambry watched quietly as Wendy relived the old memories. Gradually, Wendy's eyes grew misty. So much so, she had to slam the journal shut and stuff it in the top drawer. She quickly pulled out her phone and started typing frantically. Tambry smirked triumphantly. She didn't even need to ask who she was texting. Now it was up to Mabel to deliver the other half of the package. You did what? I'm so sorry, Dipper. Mabel finally succeeded in cornering Dipper long enough to explain to him what had happened at the diner. He wasn't taking it very well. Mabel sat nervously on the love seat as Dipper paced angrily around the living room. I didn't mean for this to happen. You didn't mean for it to happen? Do you know how many times I've heard you say that over the past 16 years? No, seriously, tell me. I lost count. Because you have to fancy yourself as the world's greatest matchmaker, now Wendy hates me. She doesn't actually hate you, Dipper. It's just the potion fooling her emotions into thinking she hates you. Haven't you been wondering why your feelings for Wendy literally changed over the span of about 30 seconds? I was wondering about that. Dipper admitted, as he started to calm down, looking more anxious now than angry. It didn't make any sense. I haven't had a negative thought about Wendy in my entire life. But, what if it's not just the potion? What if she really does hate me now? I am a dork, I'm nothing special to look at. Why would she give a damn about me? Why should I give a damn about her? Because she's your best friend, and you've been in love with her since you were 12, Dipper. Mabel shouted, as she jumped up from the love seat, flailing her arms for emphasis. This voice that's in your head, Dipper, the one trying to drive a wedge between you and Wendy, it's a lying butt-face. The hate you two think you're feeling is not real. You have to fight it. If you want to save your relationship with Wendy, you just have to. Don't you think I want that to be true? What makes you think that's what Wendy wants right now? How am I supposed to break this spell if she's not willing to do the same? You have to try, Dipper. Believe me, Wendy's feeling just as much inner turmoil as you are right now. The only way to break the potion spell is to kick those negative emotions in the balls and let your love for Wendy take over. Talk to the girl. Make her listen to you. Fight if you have to. Because until you do, the misery you're both feeling right now is never going to end. I wouldn't even know how to start. Dipper's eyes widened as his phone vibrated. He checked his screen to see he'd received a text from Wendy. Though wary of what happened the last time they texted, he pushed past it and checked the message. Wendy, meet me at Firefly Hill as soon as possible. We need to fix this. Dipper's response was simple and immediate. Dipper, I'm leaving right now. Dipper placed his phone back in his pocket and gave his sister a determined look. Wendy wants to meet and talk things out. I really hope you're right about this, Mabel. I am, I promise you, Dipper. Mabel smiled, shedding a few tears of pure relief. Go get her, Dipper. Don't you dare leave her until you're friends again. That's the plan. Dipper managed a weak smile. Let's just hope she doesn't have plans of her own. Wendy arrived at the hilltop first and was already annoyed. That little nag in her head hadn't shut up the entire 30-minute walk from her house to the hill. It was as if that annoying little voice was a conscious being realizing its existence was in jeopardy, so it went into panic mode. She tried hard to ignore it, but with the lack of a television set or a computer nearby, it was difficult to put your brain on mute. Nice view. It would be a shame if a certain someone fell over the edge. Don't even. You try to make me do anything like that, I'll jump right off after him. Don't even try me on this. You used to appreciate a good joke. Was your sense of humor something else he's stolen from you too? You realize he's never going to show, right? He doesn't care about you anymore. You should go home and just forget he ever existed. Bitch, shut the fuck up. Yak all you want. I'm not leaving here until I get my friend back and shut your ass up for good. Well. Rude. Wendy waited for what felt like ages, and so far, Dipper was a no-show. She did understand that he had to travel a little farther than she did, but he should have been there by now. Maybe he isn't going to come. Why wouldn't I? Wendy jumped in sheer shock, then turned to find Dipper standing behind her. He had somehow snuck up behind her without Wendy noticing him approach. Nobody sneaks up on a corduroy like that. Dipper. Sorry, I didn't mean to startle you. You seemed a little distracted so. Well, if someone had bothered to be on time, I wouldn't have been distracted. Wendy growled. Realizing she was getting angry already, she tried to calm herself down before saying anything else. Dipper kept his composure as well, and the two struggling friends spent the next minutes staring at each other while saying nothing. Wendy's hands balled into fists, feeling disgusted just by being in Dipper's presence. While his reaction wasn't as intense, Dipper too felt nothing but disdain for her build as they continued their stare down. A feeling he knew was absolutely wrong, and whatever was broken inside him needed to be fixed. Now. Well, I'm here. We're not yelling at each other yet, so that's good. Did Mabel tell you about the potion? Wendy asked bluntly. Yeah. She claims we have to fight through our revulsion of each other and remember how much our friendship means to us. So, is it working for you? 'Cause it sure the hell isn't working for me. Clearly not. I've been trying so hard to focus on the good and not the bad, but it's so damn hard with this little gremlin chattering in my brain, trying to poke holes in every good memory I can come up with. Well, maybe the problem is that you just don't care enough. Wendy accused, losing ground in the battle to keep her negative emotions in check. I don't care enough? If anything, I care too damn much. Other than all the crap that's happened since we took that potion, what have I ever done to make you think that I don't care? Dipper waited for a response, and it took Wendy a while longer than she would have liked to come up with one. Oh, there's plenty. Or maybe the problem is just that, you don't do anything. You can't even see what's in front of your own frickin' face. Really now? Dipper challenged, inching closer to her. Enlighten me. What am I not seeing? The fact that you don't know the answer to that is what's been driving me crazy to begin with. Though, if you don't back off right now, it's gonna be my fist in your face. Dipper raised an eyebrow at her. What? You want to hit me now? Is it really that simple? Fine then, go ahead and do it. Hit me. What? Deck me right here in the jaw if it makes you feel better. It'll be worth it if it breaks this stupid curse, or whatever the hell this thing is, right? Come on, punch me right now. Don't tempt me, Dipper. Wendy growled through gritted teeth. You know I'm perfectly capable of knocking you right on your ass. I want you too. I'm inviting you too. Come on, why are you hesitating? You hate my guts, right? All you've wanted to do for the past 24 hours is knock my lights out, right? Here's your chance. Hurry up and punch me. Do it. Come on, do it. Egged on until she just couldn't take it anymore, Wendy did just as Dipper asked. She reared her fist back and it sprung forward towards Dipper's jaw. only to stop near the collar of his shirt, where she forcefully pulled Dipper's face towards hers and mashed her lips into his. It took Dipper all of a second to process what was happening, responding by wrapping his arms around her waist and pulling the girl as close to him as he could get her, making it almost seem like pressing his lips against Wendy's was the most natural thing in the world. If you listened closely, you could almost hear two little nagging voices scream in agony as they were erased from existence. The kiss lasted longer than it probably had any business to, before they finally pulled apart, both equal parts stunned and red in the face. The old friends stared at each other in a blank daze. All Dipper could see was his best friend. A lumberjack goddess sent down to earth to turn his insides into goo every time she smiled at him. On Wendy's end, all she saw was the cute dorky boy who had managed to worm his way into her heart at some point in her life when she got careless and let her guard down. Wendy. Tears filled Dipper's eyes as he wrapped his arms around the redhead. I'm so sorry. All those horrible things I said and did, I swear I didn't mean any of them. Wendy returned the embrace with an amount of force that could only be described as rib-crunching. I know, Dipper, me too, me too. God, this has been one of the worst 24 hours of my life. Speaking of which, Wendy sniffed as the two finally separated. Do you remember much what happened during the last 24 hours? Dipper thought hard on it. And realized he really didn't. Honestly, no. I remember a lot of hard feelings, and that we said some nasty things to each other. Oddly, I don't remember many specifics though. Weird, huh? Maybe. But then again, maybe not. Mabel did say that the negative emotions we felt under the influence of that potion weren't our own. Perhaps we don't recall what was said very well, because we honestly weren't in control of ourselves when we were around each other. That makes as much sense as anything else, I guess. Wendy could think of one place they might be able to find that information. If we really want to see how out of our minds we actually were, we can check the text messages on our phones. Oh right. Those. Dipper and Wendy sat next to each other at the very top of the hill overlooking part of the valley below. Dipper's finger hovered above the screen, ready to open up the most recent chat he had with Wendy and let the House of Horrors begin. Before opening that door, however, Dipper had a change of heart. You know what, screw it. Instead of opening the chat, he hit delete all, wiping the conversation from existence. Why did you do that? Wendy asked, not really upset, but still. Because nothing good could possibly come from reading those texts. The last thing I want is to have to feel bad over something horrible I said when I wasn't in my right mind. I decided I don't need to know, nor do I want to. You know what? That sounds pretty good to me too. Wendy took out her phone and erased her version of the chat as well, forever condemning it to the black void of cyberspace. So, how did you know that kissing me would break the spell? Dipper asked shyly. You kidding, Dip? I had no frickin' idea that was going to happen. I completely winged it, Wendy laughed, but almost immediately became self-conscious. Dip, about that kiss. Don't worry about it, Dipper dismissed quickly. Wendy frowned slightly. What do you mean, don't worry about it? Just that, don't worry about it. You don't have to worry about me overreacting or reading anything into that kiss. It's something you had to do to break the spell that was over us. It worked, so in the end, that's all that really matters. Oh. All right, I guess. If Dipper wasn't too embarrassed to look down at Wendy at the moment, he might have caught the look of disappointment on her face. It's getting late, Wendy. Dipper noted, as at some point since he arrived at the hill, the sun had set on them. We don't need to get you home, do we? If it's all the same to you, Dip. Wendy put her arm around his back as she casually leaned her head against his shoulder. I'd kind of like it if you just stayed here with me for a little bit. I don't have a problem with that at all. Dipper managed to say without stuttering. While Wendy was more than content to just enjoy these next few moments, one thing was still bothering her. How the hell was she supposed to not worry about that kiss they shared when her body was still tingling from it? Back at the Pines house, Mabel was waiting anxiously for any news from her brother. It might have been too much to expect they could undo the magic from that spell in one day, but if anyone could, Mabel was confident Wendy and Dipper could. What was taking them so long then? Finally, Mabel got the information she was waiting for. It was a message from Dipper simply saying, "It worked," with a picture attached of a smiling Wendy and Dipper sitting together in the grass. If she wasn't mistaken, it even looked like Wendy might have her arm around Dipper's back. Mabel squealed in abject joy as she kicked her legs in the air excitedly. They did it! She had no idea how, but they managed to overcome her screw-up. "Oh, thank God in heaven," Mabel said out loud when she received another text from Dipper. All it said was, "You're off the hook." Her phone pinged again, and this time it was from Wendy. Her message was two simple words. For now accompanied by a smirking devil emoji. "Aw crud."